Hello and welcome everyone to the last week of SQ1 today. We're gonna have a third place decider match between Vuptrox Academy and Fuzzy Esports. I'm Kachka, and for the last cast, at least for me, I'm here with Karen.
Hello everyone, it's good to be back. I've taken a little bit of a hiatus, you could say, because I didn't get to put on any matches. Thank you, Pixel, by the way. Regardless, I am back for a very, very tense match together. The Ketchka duo is back. Of course, it's going to be very, very lovely. Now, we are going to be seeing two new contenders in this league. Of course, the top four teams in this league right now dueling it out in the playoffs. Out of them, three are new. Only one is a remaining CBA, so it's an interesting situation that has kind of sneaked into this league. However, from last week, I think we managed to take away some things, and that is that Vuptrox can take a top-tier team into 5 games, and that Fuzzy Esports got smashed. So, that narrative is going to be interesting. Have Fuzzy Esports prepared something new for us, or is it just going to be a very even game, as with the Vuptrox Gaming, or Academy, sorry. We know that they can beat teams that are below them, but can they beat someone that is above them? Well, we're gonna have to see where Fuzzy Esports stack up.
Yeah, we definitely saw them take some games off OG, as you mentioned. That 5-game semi-final was intense. Fuzzy Esports, they had a weaker showing against CBA. They kind of slopped, and I like the way you put it. It looked a bit like solo queue with where CBA was master and Fuzzy Esports were plat. I'm gonna say it was just.
It's kind of toxic, but I did say that. Yeah, that's true. I gotta stand up to my statements. I mean, it really was kind of like solo queue, and the reason for that is Fuzzy Esports, they are a very reactive team, similarly to how I described Vuptrox to you earlier when we were talking. Now, both these teams don't necessarily make too many big plays themselves. That's why they're reactive and not necessarily proactive. However, from what I saw in the Vuptrox into OG series, Vuptrox are really good at rotating around the map in terms of their macro control, and especially if you give them something with globals, they can do that even more efficiently. That's why something like a Shen is going to be a very contested pick, because both them and Fuzzy Esports can take that. Now, the reason why I think this series today is going to be a very close one, and why we should not be getting the recency bias for Fuzzy Esports that they got absolutely stomped, is because, as I said, Vuptrox do not force those plays themselves, and neither do Fuzzy Esports. This is why I think that today it's going to be a relatively slow, easy series. It's going to be a farm fest in the mid lane, in the bot lane, and it's going to be coming down to just a single lane to find some leads, and for the junglers to really show us what they can do.
And what I will be looking at whenever we have those slow games is going to be whether they choose to play around the team fights, and if they do, what will be the kind of execution. But without further talking, we are going over into the picks and bans, with Vuptrox Academy being on the blue side, Fuzzy Esports on the red side. And I can already tell you at least one of the bans that Fuzzy Esports will be getting rid of.
Oh yeah, which one is that going to be?
It's probably Anivia. Spoiler alert.
Good, that's a good call. I mean, the interesting part here is that Fuzzy Esports actually did decide to choose to be going on the red side first, which me and you had a little bit of a discussion before this game started, and we were wondering what the reason for that is. And I kind of came to the conclusion that the side of Fuzzy Esports, they want to secure themselves a better bot lane for the beginning. We saw Kala, when he popped off last week against CBA on the Corki, it was a magnificent performance from him. They managed to close the game out relatively quickly, and the Yuumi did manage to help them out quite a bit in that regard. So that is why we're seeing Vuptrox Academy take that away from the board. However, right now, the Anivia, as you went through, a pick that I'm actually looking at most is for Endorser, the Mordekaiser, or Urgot. This guy is essentially a 3-trick pony that we saw in this league as of right now, and so getting him that comfort pick is going to be incredibly important when we recall to what lane can go actually pretty interesting way, which is the top lane.
Yeah, there goes the Shen ban as well. We saw Bumblebee in their match against CVA pick that one up. The Anivia is going to be removed from Chrissy. Those are most likely going to be the 3 standard bans against Vuptrox. The Nunu for Varte, the Anivia for Toxi or Hello, it's Anivia, and Zaya for Chrissy, 3 of very strong champs. But you mentioned the top lane. Mordekaiser is open, and Endorser loves this champion. He's had so many strong performances, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't lock it in right now.
Yeah, especially since Mordekaiser is an incredibly fair champion. I think the only more fair champion in League of Legends right now is Dr. Mundo, just to, describe to all you all lovely viewers out there how fun this champion is to play against. However, he is going to be getting countered a tiny bit by Akali unless it is a flex for Z. However, I do recall Bumblebee playing it more often than him. And we haven't necessarily mentioned the mid laners just yet, and that's because I think that it's mostly going to be a farm fest in that lane itself, like just a mage versus mage. Of course, Toxi, now renamed Hello It's Anivia, is a magnificent mage player on something like an Azir, which was left open for him if he wants to pick that up. However, right now, we're seeing the Gragas being hovered. Varte has had a pretty good performance last week on it, so hopefully he can do some good there on that front, because, well, the only early game leads, I think, are just going to be found through the junglers or, once again, the top laners.
Alright, and just coming back to the Z point, it's interesting that you mentioned, because he can play a lot of those assassins as well. Yes, he can play mages, but assassins are also his forte, although, I'm a bit of a slave of the recency bias of his Z against CBA, which wasn't the best, but I'm gonna give him benefit of doubt because Paulson's Cassiopeia last week was huge. And so maybe he will make another statement as Ezreal is secured for the side of Vuptrox Academy, most likely going over into the bot lane.
And already we're seeing a little bit of a differentiation for the side of Vuptrox Academy, because often what you would see Chrissy on, it would be something of a hyper carry focused. Desire did get taken away from him, and a Kaisa was picked up by the side of Fuzzy Esports, and so right now, I think that it's just a default reaction by Vuptrox to say, alright, what can Chrissy play really well? Well, it's likely not going to be any other big hyper carry. Let's just put him onto Ezreal. Now, when we think of Ezreal, what can he really do? He's not necessarily a champion that wins you the game. He's a champion that doesn't lose you the game. And what he often offers is actually roaming from his support. Le Piggy was amazing in their series last week, and he set up essentially all of the kills in, I believe it was the first and third game, where he had around 90% kill participation on an Alistar. So that is a huge pick for him, and right now we're just seeing Fuzzy Esports try and focus him down with the Pike ban. Going to have to wait to see what this last one is going to be.
They could remove that Alistar, as you said, or maybe even Fiddlesticks was another pick that he played really well, more in the quarterfinal against Royal Reapers. Also Azir for Hello It's Anivia, very strong champion of his. Could be the ban here. We'll see what they go for, but what I am seeing now from Fuzzy Esports is they have a composition that will want to engage and kill you with quite a lot of mobility already, and I'm just looking forward to what they will round it off with.
Right now I'm also wondering what the support pick is going to be for Necromancer, because the Yuumi did get taken away from him. However, he does have some other interesting champions that can offer this engage that you kind of mentioned this team needing. That Thresh being hovered would definitely go along those terms. Something that is also possible to be picked up is a Rakan, so they could pivot it to that. But no, it's gonna be Thresh for Necromancer, trying to find some leads in that bot lane with Kaisa. I am actually unsure if they ran it last week. I might be mixing it up with something else. However, that lane didn't really go well, I remember that much. So hopefully it's going to have more of a presence this game, because this lane definitely wants to find those leads.
Alistar is now being hovered. Le Piggy could just go back on this champion. And they go for the Yasuo instead for the mid lane.
Wait, is it going to be an Alistar Yasuo bot lane and Ezreal mid?
It could be.
No way, no.
It could be, but I think it could also be just Yasuo in the mid lane. Toxi, I believe he's played a few games, or Hello It's Anivia, on the Yasuo, and it is within his champion pool. But the flex is actually there. It's interesting you mention it, because now, with the last mid lane or top lane, sorry, I'm trolling, the jungle pick anyways, it will give some time anyways to Vuptrox to just decide what they exactly want to play.
Yeah, so right now I'm thinking, what is Hopper actually going to be picking? We saw his performance being really good on Olaf, but given that that necessarily isn't the champion that you think of when trying to describe champions that like to get their lanes ahead, Rek'Sai is definitely a pick that can do much better in that regard. So, as I said, junglers want to affect this game very early on. Gragas and Rek'Sai, both junglers that can find these leads very early on. And if you've ever seen a Rek'Sai that gets terribly fed very early on, well, it's terrifying. And now, what lanes can Rek'Sai really go to? When we look at all of this setup that is there from her team, sorry, not his, there's actually engage everywhere, especially post level 6 from the top lane. That becomes essentially a death lane for Mordekaiser, especially if Rek'Sai manages to pick up some kills along the way. However, even in the mid lane, if Hello It's Anivia overextends, or if Thresh lands a really good hook in that bot lane, every single lane is a playfield for this Rek'Sai, so going to have to see how Hopper plays around his camps, and perhaps if he wants to get some counter jungling in, despite his team not necessarily offering him the best of kind of protection from. I was kind of going for some allegory, but it just completely slipped my mind. Get damn it. They're not necessarily going to be having the push. Let's say it that way.
Alright, that is fair enough. But what I'm excited about is we had the expectation before the game that it's going to be a bit of a slower one, that teams don't really force anything. But looking at the picks, those are two comps that want to do absolutely everything they can in the early to mid game in order to find themselves ahead. And looking at the side of Vuptrox Academy with Varte on the Gragas, it is a fairly similar story. I don't think they're gonna snowball bot lane, but mid lane is technically gankable, as well as top lane and Dorser on the Mordekaiser. We saw what this man can do. Mordekaiser himself is a snowballable champion, and if you can shut Bumblebee's Gnar down, that is a win condition for Vuptrox that could be played around.
Yeah, and you were talking about the mid lane being snowballed. It doesn't necessarily have to be snowballed. Those mid laners can snowball themselves. If we see some outplays coming through from either side, it should be upon the mechanical prowess of either of these two mid laners, whom I'll be honest, I'm not sure who I can actually give this one to, because Z didn't necessarily get to play last week, and Hello It's Anivia did manage to get a couple of good games on. What was it? I believe it was Syndra and then an Azir. Really unsure. I don't want to be
definitely the Azir. I don't really remember Syndra that much.
Yeah, I think it was Z that actually played Syndra, so might be misconstruing there. However, as you said, mid lane definitely a snowballable lane. That's a weird word. But if either of these champions gets a single kill, that lane should effectively be over. Now, it's going to be relatively difficult to try and gank Akali. However, given that you have a Gragas, you actually have ways to displace her. So the fact that you're trying to gank an Akali isn't necessarily going to matter. Z is still going to have to make sure that his side rushes are always warded. Always try to track the enemy jungler, because it is just so explosive. The amount of damage and the amount of setup that a Gragas and Yasuo duo offers is way too strong for you to be able to run away from as soon as you get locked down once. And so Z is still going to have to play careful despite being a hypermobile champ.
And draw that point into the mid-game teamfights that we'll be having. You will have Lepiggy joining in on Alistar, and Dorser on hopefully a frontline Mordekaiser. And the reason I say hopefully is that hopefully he will not be too far behind. And when you have that death ball running at you with Chrissy shooting in the consistent DPS from the backline, it will be scary if Fuzz Esports fall behind. But the same argument can be constructed in favor of Fuzz Esports. If Vuptrox are the ones falling behind, then the Akali, Rek'Sai, and Kaiser flying in will destroy your team as well. And it's just so exciting, because I feel like the first 15 minutes of the game could as well decide the game one.
Yeah, they definitely will. And it's kind of a change of my expectations, as you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. I thought that it was just going to be a farm fest essentially everywhere. I wasn't necessarily expecting such high explosive lanes to be picked up, as well as early game junglers. That kind of I did, but I didn't think that they would be paired up with so much damage and follow-up. And so we're in for actually interesting League of Legends, rather than just waiting for 30 minutes till that one single fated team fight where one team just auto wins. So it's going to be interesting to watch, definitely. And The thing is that the thing that I picked up from watching both these teams last week when they played against OG and CBA is that often their picks relied on individual skill as well. And this time it's going to be even more well pronounced simply because of the picks that they managed to get. Yasuo, well, we all know Yasuo, right? It's the syndrome guy. You know, if you're good at him, great. If you suck at him, well, you're probably 0-7 and constantly inting. Same can be said about a Nakali though. And even as an Ezreal, essentially, if you have someone like an Alistar, you can get yourself ahead very early on. Same can be said for Mordekaiser as well as Gnar. So the room is there, the stage is set, and it's only now for the players to show us what they're made of, as well as for us to get through this SQ1 Championship pause league.
What a better way
wonderful.
to start the final week of the 2019 season. It's actually also kind of hard to believe that, you know, we're technically only in September. The summer split is about to draw to a close, and one of these teams today will take the third place. Both probably a bit bitter that they can't play in the final tomorrow, but there's still one last hurdle. There's still one more opportunity to prove themselves.
One last opportunity, one last series for these teams in this league at least. Of course, we'll be back next year with the Spring League. I'm actually unsure if we're going to be getting something in the meantime. You would have to ask the management that, and they haven't given me any concrete answer yet, so I'm sorry. I cannot relay any information that way, but I think that Fuzzy Esports and Vuptrox Academy definitely don't have to feel ashamed for their performances in this league. Of course, they're the two newcoming teams. They definitely blew out of the water, I think. At least Vuptrox with their consistent play, and with Fuzzy Esports kind of making a comeback in this league. If I don't remember that incorrectly, they used to be like bottom 4 for a time, and then, well, of course, like 4 teams got Thanos snapped out of this league. But you know, they still made it back. They made it through the playoffs, and now they're playing for the top 3rd spot. So definitely big props to these teams, and let's just hope that we can see some good League of Legends today. Let's just hope that we can end it with a bang.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also the journey that both of these teams have taken. Vuptrox Academy throughout the whole regular season were this kind of middle team that no one ever believed that they could take games of higher teams, yet here they are trying to get 3rd place against Fuzzy Esports. Whereas Fuzzy Esports themselves, they started with an 0-5, if I'm not mistaken. They were definitely not looking great. Then looking strong towards the end of regular season, falling short in the semis, but having one last chance to redeem themselves. And today it's all about just finishing your journey in the summer split with the win, show yourself to be strong, and hopefully we'll get a good series.
And have fun, and remember that it's all about the friends we made along the way.
No.
Said nobody ever. It's all about the prize money. Just kidding, no. I mean, it kind of is, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is.
We got told that we should mention it, so, you know, now we mention it.
That is the sellout.
There we go, that's the sellout, yeah. Winner gets cash! Anyway, League of Legends, right now, looks like there's going to be an invade happening from the side of Fuzzy Esports. Good invade, good deep ward put down, going to be able to spot Varte if he were starting at the bottom side of the map. However, he's going to be taking the blue buff to start, going to be spotted out, however, as both of the top laners will be arriving late to that minion wave.
Alright, so the junglers, both starting on the top side without any leash. Vati will be a bit behind Hopper. I'm just trying to find something to talk about, but level 1, it's like always, there's never anything happening for that level 1. The ward on the Raptors though, Fuzzy Sports managed to put it down, which will give them information about Varte when he chooses to go down there.
Yeah, so actually, pay attention to your minimap right now. Varte is going to be crossing this ward. He could have taken a route around it, but right now, the side of Fuzzy Sports know that this Gragas is sitting at the bot side of his jungle. They can also see him doing Raptors with no problem. So, you know, that's also very good information. And as I said, it's going to be important to see these teams try and track down their jungler. So Fuzzy Esports are already with a good start to it, because Gragas can essentially gank level 2, so it's important that they always keep their vision on him. Of course, post level 6, he gets even better at doing said job, but, you know, going to have to get there first.
So far, Bumblebee doing a really good job in the top lane, just punishing Endorser, shoving the lane in, getting a CS advantage. We'll have to see if it keeps up being the trade, since with Mordekaiser, often you do need some of those levels to become useful. As of Varte, we'll be looking maybe for a gang, maybe for that Skullcrab, but Hopper is down there, so he needs to be careful.
So things to remember, I don't think that necessarily Gragas can 1v1 a Rek'Sai unless he gets the jump on her from the get-go, so every single one of these skirmishes around the Skullcrab is going to be dependent on who gets that mid lane or bot lane prio, depending on where the Skullcrab is. And right now, the situation, unfortunate for Fuzzy Esports, is that Vuptrox Academy got to push both in mid lane and bot lane, which means that Varte was able to just go into that river, and with the help of an Alistar as well as Yasuo, he was just able to secure it. So right now, the side of Vuptrox Academy just doing a good job of helping their jungler. It's lovely.
And it's good to see they use the priority they have to actually gain some objectives, and it might not be a lot at first, but just wait until those Drakes and Heralds start spawning in. It might be an important part of Vuptrox. The first Drake will be a Cloud, so probably not that much priority being given to it, as now Hopper, he will be moving up towards this top side, and Endorser will need to be careful. He cannot really overextend.
And the thing that we actually have to pay our attention to is kind of the messed up expectations that we had before this draft even started. And right now, when you see a team that doesn't necessarily play one style and decides to draft the other, well, it kind of does open the room up for perhaps unwarranted mistakes to be made. So
oh, here goes Hopper for Endorser, looking for the first blood. The flash away already for the Mordekaiser. Look at his health just dropping. He pops the shield, and Endorser will be able to walk away.
That is an unfortunate situation for the top laner and jungler of Fuzzy Esports. They were a bit too scared to be going for the dive. They knew that this turret still deals quite a lot of damage, especially this early on when you do not have any health, and so they just decide to turn around. They don't necessarily give a kill to this Gnar, but it does manage to give him even more of a lead in this top lane, just because he's going to be able to control the wave without any interference from his opposing top laner.
Alright, and now the game calms down. Varte still didn't find any ganks. He's just farming his jungle diligently, getting camp after camp, looking for that level 6, the cask that you mentioned, because there are some escape tools available for pretty much all the lanes. So you see now Varte just helping to push the mid lane out and securing a recall for Hello, it's Anivia.
Yeah, that was actually a very dangerous thing to get hit by the tornado by the Akali, given that Yasuo has hit that level 6. And the importance of that is that now, if Varte ever decides to visit mid lane, given that he still has his flash available as that he hasn't made a gank yet, that is essentially a knockup that you cannot try and dodge away from, even if you're Akali. So unless this Akali pops a shroud immediately after the knockup, or even before the knockup, this Yasuo is going to be able to burst her down, just because of how much damage there's going to be combined between the mid laner and combined between himself and the jungler, should I say. So right now, it's a scary time to be a mid laner against the 2v2 composition in the mid lane and jungle for Fuzzy Esports, but right now, not much is going on. There's a little bit of a CS lead being made, mostly in the top lane, of course, where it's a range into mid.
Alright, here goes the Predator. Good flash from the Piggy, the Lantern. He's still picked up. Varte, he's going forward. Look at his health. He's already down to 300. Will be forced to flash away, and a questionable gank at best from Vuptrox Academy.
Yeah, perhaps the nerve starting to show for the side of Vuptrox Academy. Varte didn't necessarily combine his E with the flash, so there was no CC to follow it up with. He just flashed and used the cask, the W, to just get some more damage down, and there wasn't enough follow-up to try and warrant a kill. So the bot lane of Fuzzy Esports, they just run away with their lives. And they also keep all of their summoners, which is pretty important, because now Alistar does not have the flash combo, and neither does Gragas.
The Piggy has got his Hex Flash, but that's not gonna help you once you're in the fight. Only for the initiation. Necromancer completed the Moby, but you can see him already moving to the mid lane. After that first recall, Z jumping forward with a perfect execution, lands the Shuriken flip, and chunks Anivia down. Hopper also over the wall with the Prey Seeker. But it's not gonna be enough.
enough just yet. Rek'Sai does not decide to go over the wall with it. I do think that he hit the Yasuo, but that is the scary part of now trying to face an Akali as Varte meets Hopper in the jungle.
We said that Rek'Sai should win those engages. Now Hopper goes forward, but he's already low. The cask down from Varte. That's the first blood secured for the Gragas.
And that is a questionable death for this Rek'Sai because Hopper could have dodged that explosive cask. It was very well telegraphed, however, he did not decide to go underground with his ultimate to try and dodge away from it, and as such, he just gives a kill over to Varte, which is not a situation that you want to be in as a Rek'Sai. You want to be the dominant jungler. You want to be getting those kills yourself, not getting jumped on by Varte and giving that lead away.
Especially not when you are a dueling jungler. We mentioned what our expectations for this matchup is. And now they have been a bit broken as Endorser in top lane. He's not having a good time. Bumblebee, he's got the Mega Narc, pushes Endorser away as the Realm of Death has been issued as well. Both top laners will just walk away. But Bumblebee, he still has got the hold on this top lane.
He's managed to keep control of his health bar, at least for now. His ultimate's traded there. I'm actually unsure who has the shorter cooldown. When I look at the icons for both top laners, it seems that Mordekaiser. So, if the jungler of Fuzzy Esports ever decides to come by, should be a bit easier for Mordekaiser to try and survive that one. I am actually a bit curious as to why there are so many of these mechanical misplays being made right now. It's an unfortunate situation, however, it's all about the macro game, right? We're turning to Korea right now.
Yeah, not a lot of action happening.
Bad joke.
But what I am curious about, Chrissy and Lepiggy finding a CS advantage in the bot lane against a Kai'Sa Thresh lane. Already 17 ahead for Chrissy. And he's just starting to rack up on these plays now as well.
Yeah, it's curious. I mean, Ezreal into a Thresh is a really nice matchup for Ezreal because ideally you should never get hit by a single hook, so it nullifies the impact that Thresh can have essentially completely. But given that there is no flash on Alistar, Varte is in mid lane.
Good dodge away from Z, and he's gonna be safe.
That was a very good dodge. I mean, I'm an Akali player and I could not pull that off. I mean, that's why I'm casting, so, you know. Anyway, Hopper is sitting in the tri-brush in the bot lane. Does manage to run away, however. And to kind of return to my point, it's curious to see that the bot lane of the side of Vuptrox Academy is having such pressure, yes, that's the word, in this bot lane just because of this Alistar not really being able to threaten the bot lane of Fuzzy Esports that much without that flash and without that much added agency.
Now the game is at a pretty much even state. The last league that we didn't really mention is mid lane. 4Z on the Akali in terms of the CS advantages, and he's close to getting the Hextech Gunblade. And we mentioned how mid-game is going to be the pop-off point for both these teams with a snowball. Well, without a snowball, you're just going to be playing around the spikes. And that will be one huge one for Fuzzy Esports.
And okay. I was gonna say that I want to talk about that mid lane power spike, but I'm going to hold my breath. Well, it does not matter as Varte is spotted out by the Thresh Lantern. So, the importance of this power spike is even more massive than you would usually think, and that is because of the build that Hello It's Anivia is actually going for. When you look at his build, he is having Berserk Briefs and a Zeal, so he's getting actually very close to finishing Static Ship and as his first item. However, he doesn't have it finished yet, and Akali after this back should have the Hextech Gunblade. So she will have a full item, and Yasuo will have boots, essentially, is what I'm talking about. So that at that point, it becomes incredibly easy for this Akali to just run this Yasuo down. So keep your eyes on that mid lane. It's going to be very important unless Yasuo gets help.
Oh, nice dodge away once again from Z, from that tornado. It probably would have been the follow-up as now Chrissy, good arcane shot away, that's the flash hook. Kali follows up with the clear instinct. He wants to find himself the kill. Chrissy, no subs, no way to get out from Kali, and that's going to be the kill. But Varte has joined the fray, the Lantern pulls Kali back in, the cast, it's gonna kill Necromancer, and the second kill goes over to Lepiggy. And Fuzzy Esports might have found a pick onto Chrissy, but Vuptrox Academy answer right back.
Why would you take the Lantern there? That was an unfortunate choice for Kala to be picking up the Lantern. I suppose that he didn't look in which situation Thresh really was. He did take his Lantern to his direct impending doom. As I say, that Piggy is in the mid lane looking for Z.
The Piggy, he's taking a lot of damage from both the Rek'Sai and the Akali, and yeah, Hopper just goes in for the kill, but Varte only killing he has more than enough in turn to respond. This game, it's starting to get brawly, it's starting to get exciting. Varte going forward, but he finds himself in a 1 versus 2 as there's also fighting in the top lane happening at the same time, with Bumblebee being hit, and Dorsey uses the Death's Grasp onto the Gnar. He's got the shield, flash away now from Bumblebee, but Endorser follows it through and solo kills Bumblebee in top lane.
There's the solo kill in the top lane that I was talking about. Mordekaiser is an incredibly fun and fair champion, everyone. Gnar does fall to him. Indeed, and right now I think that the situation should start to get a bit heated. So many kills happening in the span of around 3 minutes, and when we look back at the entire scenario, we have to look at where all of the kills went, and Varte is sitting on 3 kills. This guy is going to be dealing so much damage. He already has the Runic Echoes finished, he also has the Sorc Shoes, so right now every single gank from this man becomes lethal just because no one is tanky enough to withstand the amount of burst that this guy has.
Right, 14 minutes in, Vuptrox Academy with 1,000 gold in the lead, and Varte, he has to have our eyes on him. 3-0-1, you mentioned his burst, he's also running the Predator. The AP Gragas is a norm, so I don't feel like we need to be pointing that out anymore so explicitly. But what is worth pointing out is how quickly all of the people on Fuzz Esports will die to him.
Yeah, so all of the burst is essentially coming from this Vuptrox jungler. Outside of that, I think that as soon as Endorser decides to group up with this team, it's also going to be a big problem for the Esports. Varte is in trouble.
He has the flash and the ultimate. He uses the casket, flashes away from Z, but he can still keep going. That's the flash in place for Z, but Varte, he just doomed himself with this stop, which is a shutdown.
So
but did by enough time. Anubia, he's jumping forward, but he's going to die. That's Z with the second kill. Necromancer lands the hook onto Lepeggy. It's Fuzzy Esports coming out on top with 3 clean kills in mid lane.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful team fight from Fuzzy Esports. They turn a bad situation into a better one. They start off the team fight really, really well, and they secure it with a flare. Now 5 kills for 5 is the score. He's running on
chasing onto Chris. Look at all the damage.
Fair.
Hopper on a killing speed, and the goalies just like that shifted and turned around. 2,500 for Fuzzy Esports.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a meta where AD carries are an actual thing that is being played in the bot lane. Ezreal just could not run away from this Rek'Sai after using the Arcane Shift, and given that he didn't have a flash up because he was forced to flash away from a Thresh hook a couple of minutes prior, well, he just fell prey. And now, Twilight Drake is being done. Not the best of Drake, of course, but I mean, it's still very nice for Vuptrox Academy, who have lost so much gold in that one single fight.
The next one is Infernal, so definitely be more priority towards it. It's gonna be spawning just a minute after the Baron. The game has already accelerated massively from that very slow early game and a very boring one, I have to say, but now we're getting all the fighting, getting all the kills. And they are stacking up on these junglers, Rek'Sai and Gragas, getting those kills. But you also have Z on the Kali and Kale on the Kai'Sa getting some of the, pieces of the pie for themselves. And who is really going to have the edge in this mid game?
Who is going to have the edge? So, when I look at all the power spikes, I think that the big one comes to me immediately, and that's Rek'Sai, who has already finished Black Cleaver as her second item, together with the attack damage enchantment for her jungle item, so that is definitely going to be the biggest offender in these fights. Now, can Gragas really step up to her? Unless Hopper misses his ulti once again, I think that is unlikely. And so right now, if you see people start to group around for these skirmishes, it should technically be Fuzzy Esports to have the upper hand, I think, as
no,
goes in.
Chris, you run away. That was so unfortunate.
What happened?
Flash and Blasco both failing Chrissy in a crucial moment, and he's gonna end up dying to Hopper.
I feel like this guy's just not having a good game. I mean, that was just unfortunate, really. I mean, I feel like that should have blasted him away. He must have gotten interrupted by something, perhaps. I'm trying to think what could knock him up. Was it Rek'Sai? As I speak of Rek'Sai.
Hopper looking for another gang on the Hello, it's Olivia. Just look at all the DPS from that Rek'Sai. Kale comes flying in for the kill. The hook connects with Piggy burning both the flash and the old Chrissy. He TP'd in under the tower. 1 versus 4. He's gonna have to pull off one hell of an outplay to even survive, or I guess just make sure the wave isn't there. That works as well.
Yeah, so the side of Fuzzy Esports are incapable of pulling off a dive as the cavalry of Vuptrox Academy finally arrived to relieve Chrissy. However, that is exactly the win condition that we considered Fuzzy Esports' draft to be capable of pulling off. Get Rek'Sai fed, and it's easy game from there. Hopper right now is just hopping from lane to lane to lane, just dashing around in the jungle, picking so many people up. It's disgusting, and it's only going to be getting worse from here, as now you have the 2 kills on this Kai'Sa. She's going to start to scale up, and even in the late game, of course, it's too early to be speaking of that. I am actually unsure if Vuptrox Academy outscale, simply because they won't necessarily have too much of a tanky front line, unless this Gragas and Mordekaiser decides to swap their builds into full tank. So, right now, the situation is looking pretty damn good for Fuzzy Esports.
And also the death ball of the entire team. Even when or if Hopper messes up, just wait a few more minutes. Kai'Sa and Akali will be right there to follow it up. Bumblebee is also scaling. I'm not sure if he will opt towards the more split push or more team fight build for the Gnar, but whatever he's going for, he's going to be very much impactful by the next 10 minutes.
I think that right now it would make sense for Bumblebee to just be going for the tank, because you don't necessarily need to side lane of Hopper.
Hopper, that's gonna be a sick kill. No flash, no escape, or donate it to Z, and even better idea, get some kills on your Akali.
Yeah, so the Yasuo pick definitely not working out for Hello It's Anivia. I mean, he was having a pretty neutral performance on this chap into Z, so he didn't manage to snowball himself, and that is the fate that a stereotypical Yasuo player suffers in every single solo queue game that I have one on my team. Because if you get killed once on a Yasuo, you just get killed 7 times because he has to be in the thick of it. And if he isn't able to just blow people up by the 20th minute, it's an incredibly tough game to be playing as Yasuo.
You can see all the armor now being picked up, at least by the AD carry. Chrissy, Iceborne Gauntlet, and Ninja Tabby, which is a good choice against the Rek'Sai. There's also an Akali, my dude. You are going to struggle a lot against Z, especially when he hits that death cap, which is a long way off. But you gotta be looking at that, at least in the next 10 minutes. Here goes Endorsement though, with the Realm of Death onto Kale. But the Kai'Sa is just too damn strong. There's nothing that Endorsement can do. He has to flash away. Here comes Hopper. Can he get a kill? It's a shutdown picked up by Varte. 1 for 1 now as Hopper goes unstoppable. It's a shutdown for Varte. Bumblebee gets a double Gnar into the wall, but he's just blown up. Z's on the killing spree. No, Bumblebee still alive with a flash away. Fuzzy Esports are surviving in this fight. It's all over the place. Z goes golden. Lantern, it needs to be blocked. That's a hook onto Varte and then into time. Z, he's going back in on a rampage. It's now a 3-4-3. I can't believe this fight just ends up being even.
Such a chaotic fight initiated by several times by both sides. It seemed that it was going to be Vuptrox Academy coming out on top for a second there. However, we still have to realize that Fuzzy Esports are just so damn far ahead. It was enough. The damage from Hop with the damage from Z, even though Kala fell very early on, it didn't matter because Bumblebee came by with the CC, and then Akali still has a ridiculous amount of damage as I say that. Chrissy gets hooked.
Chrissy, Necromancer following up with the play to his demise. Varte was there to stop him, and Chrissy ends up getting the kill. This game is an absolute bloodbath.
Definitely a bloodbath, at least turning into one. And right now, the question is, can Fuzzy Esports really win a teamfight if they aren't the ones to initiate it on their own terms? I'm going to have to hold my breath as the teamfight can now in fact be initiated by Vuptrox Academy. However, that was the perfect combo that we saw them. We saw Alistar jumping in, getting a several man people knock up. Yasuo follows up, and you do still have the damage from the Gragas as well as Chrissy, despite him not having the best of performances. So both teams are still relatively even.
Oh, Bumblebee, he's gonna get blown up. Hello, it's Anivia getting that kill. Infernal Dragon is the target. 5 versus 4 in favor of Vuptrox Academy. Can they get anything out of it? Necromancer has joined the fray. Chrissy, low on health. So is Endorser, not full HP. Both these teams, they want this dragon so bad, but they're so afraid of overcoming it. Here goes Hopper. He's going to get stunned by the body slam. Endorser pulls him in the realm of death. The void rush, it's not enough. Endorser picks the kill up. And now with the jungler gone, Vuptrox Academy will turn their gaze towards the dragon.
I really don't know what the thought was there from Hopper. I suppose he wanted to kill Mordekaiser, but why risk it at this point? You're dashing into 5 people. Of course you're going to get stunned up for at least a short period of time before going 1v1 into this Mordekaiser. And so that was just an Inferno Drake thrown away by a bad decision, and an unfortunate one at that, as he didn't necessarily have to do it. So, goddammit, how do you analyze this situation? So, Vuptrox Academy, they're definitely still on even footing. They have picked up so many kills. Most of them going into the pockets of Varte, in fact. So this guy is going to be even more scary now as he has finished Perturbelt and Zonius. That's kind of scary, but the important part to point our eyes on is that it's all about pick potential. And when we look at what engage there is from both sides, well, there's plenty, but we now have to look at what the vision control is going to be. Baron buff has spawned. Look at the topside river. Both teams are just starting to clear out all these wards. The dance is up, the jig is up, and right now it's going to be about who gets the better coverage of vision, because both teams can jump on top of each other, and whoever does that first, whoever gets the first crucial pick, wins that team fight later on.
Also looking for Bumblebee. The hop away from the Death's Grasp will be enough. The Baron is up and on the table, but despite Vuptrox Academy winning the last couple of fights, they are still in a deficit. Z is now on 2 items, 4, 1, and 3, and definitely a threat. So is Kale, and Hopper has never stopped being one. So despite all that, you still gotta be careful. But now this game is truly on a knife's edge.
I definitely still have to be incredibly careful if you're on the side of Vuptrox. You also have to be careful when you're on the side of Fuzzy Esports, of course, because when we see them jumping in 1v5, that is just them getting cocky, I feel, because there's no other explanation for it. Right now, Necromancer and Kala were just sitting in that bush, not finding anyone. They will spot Varte. They're starting to move up in the river. Not going to turn into too much just yet. Helvitz and Navia gets jumped on.
Hopper's down in the ball lane. Here comes the last breath. The Sterak's Gage already been proc. Hopper flashes away. But Hello, Navia is gonna get the kill now without the jungler. Can Vuptrox punish?
Right now, that was a crucial overextension from the jungler of Fuzzy Esports once again. He cannot keep on doing this because now no smite.
Oh, Kale going forward. He nearly picks off Chrissy. The trample is gonna stand up. Here comes Varte. That is so much damage. And the cast gets him a rampage kill as Kale is sent back to his grave. Z now trying to get away. Flash pulverized from the piggy is gonna nail the Akali. He's still dancing around the shroud. He's gonna get stand up with the body slam. Bumblebee has joined the fray. Teleport from the side of Vuptrox Academy is going to be Chrissy joining the fight, and now Vuptrox Academy moving towards that Baron.
So once again, an overextension. Fuzzy Esports, they're hunting for kills. They think they can do it. Kala overextends, goes 1v2, and pays with a slight in the end, as Vuptrox Academy are able to turn it around, and they're also able to turn it into a Baron. Right now, there is still the smite up. Possible for contestant from
got
Hopper.
His ultimate, and he's nearly making our Hopper is behind the pit. Bumblebee is going in. That's a 3-man ultimate. Varte is golden, and that's a steal away. Fuzzy Esports, they're getting the Baron, and they're getting the fight. Varte is down. That's the second kill for Hopper. Endorser is stuck in the pit, knocked up by the Rek'Sai. That's a double for Z, and Fuzzy Esports turn the play around.
And Bumblebee buys a redemption into heaven with that heroic play. He gets the multi-man stun into the walls of the Baron pit, forces Varte to go golden, and that means that he cannot smite that low health Baron buff. Hopper dashes in and manages to secure this Baron for his team. And once again, Fuzzy Esports, after not seeming too hot after those 2 picks they managed to give freely to Vuptrox Academy, are looking like their grip on this game is still yet to be sealed in place.
Fuzzy Esports, the goal lead yet again just gets bigger for them. Now 3 items on Z. Bumblebee picked up that ice frozen mallet, I should say. He's going to be strong in the standing, but we saw his team fight impact. And Fuzzy Esports, I'm sorry, Vuptrox Academy, they just don't seem to really have the answers. Varte, he was forced to use the Zonias in the pit, which gave away the Baron, but he would have died anyways. So it was a lose-lose situation if you are Vuptrox. And it's just great plays from Fuzzy.
However, we saw kind of the duality of this Fuzzy Esports composition, because we saw them trying to go for skirmishes, and then we saw them going for team fights. And notably, the team fight works out much better. Z goes onto Endorser, Hopper is there to help him.
That's gonna be a 2v1, no way to escape. Z on a killing spree. And now with 4 members of Fuzzy down in bot lane, Vuptrox will be forced to respond.
And what Vuptrox were really good at in their series against OG was finding these leads that the enemy was trying to get and turning them into leads of their own, trying to trade for it. There were 4 men in the top lane, but given that there was no wave of their own, they decided to back, and in the end, they lose so much more than they would have gained.
Going on to Khaled, that's the last breath. AD carry blown up, Varte with the kill. Good pick for Vuptrox, and it will stop Fuzzy Esports in their tracks.
However, right now, that's a single pick for Vuptrox as Fuzzy Esports just barrel in, even on more objectives. Top lane turret false ignore is going to shove in another wave. Cloud Drake picked up by Fuzzy as well. And right now, they're just getting all the objectives, and this is very, very cleanly played around this macro by Fuzzy.
And this is just game 1 of this best of 5. Of course, it is perfectly possible that the team who wins here could go on and take a 3-0 sweep, but it's close, and despite Vuptrox being in a goal deficit for nearly the entire game, they are not giving up. They keep fighting, they keep finding the picks. Varte is the huge carry with now 3 items and a jungle item on top of that. But Chrissy, he could be in a lot of trouble, but he's fairly tanky with all his armor. Hopper cannot do a whole lot. He has to use the Void Rush, trying to jump in, but Chrissy is just too damn tanky. As Endorser, he goes into the realm of death together with Bumblebee. The fight's not done yet, but I think it will be.
So the Science decides to disengage for the meantime. However, we just see Fuzzy Esports giving these kills away to Vuptrox Academy. I said that they were doing this very cleanly. However, they always just are out of position. One of their members, it's either Hopper or Kala, that tends to be the biggest offenders in this regard. Hopper right now has picked up, I believe it was 1 kill and 4 deaths in the time span of the past 10 minutes, so not the best of scores to be sitting on, even despite being in the positives on the scoreboard. So Fuzzy Esports definitely have to kind of clean up their act. Of course, as you said, it's the first game in the best of 5. They're still warming up. There is a potential for this to get better. However, I really like what I'm seeing. However, now Baron buff has expired from Fuzzy Esports, and so the teams are once again on even footing when it comes to clearing out waves.
And one problem that you might have if you're a Hopper is that usually Rek'Sai falls off, but the reason why you're still useful is because you can one-shot the AD carry. You cannot one-shot the AD carry when Chrissy has 155 armor.
I mean, it does
Tell me I'm wrong.
Hey, I mean, it does make things a bit more difficult, right? I mean, it doesn't necessarily make Israel tanky. You don't want him sitting in the front line, but it does make things a bit more difficult, especially for Hopper, as you said. Of course, you still have Z, who is sitting on 7-1, but when I recall the fights, I don't necessarily remember him doing too much in them, and that's because Akali is a better split pusher than she is a team fighter, so definitely waiting on her to make more of her impact in these team fights. And right now, the stage is kind of sad. One single team fight is all it takes. Endorser gets jumped on top of.
It just seems like another part in this endless trilogy, but he's staying alive with the Realm of Death onto Hopper, and Varte is there to help. Z jumps forward right into the Grag as a shutdown picked up by Endorser. Varte is popping off, he has the patience, he's just smelling the right moments and going in, and it nearly always pays off.
Yeah, Varte is getting his Grag is banned out for next game, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's what we can deduce out of this. A really impressive performance from him in this game. Necromancer might get to jump on top of there.
He's going forward. Hello, it's Enigma. Gets the last breath. Hopper, he's already chunked low. That's a good hook onto Chrissy. Forces him to burn that flash. Vuptrox Academy still sticking around in mid lane. No ult from Hello, it's Enigma at least. For the time being, the mid lane tier 1 seems to be the focus. At 32.5 minutes, Vuptrox Academy finally knocked down this objective.
This just keeps on going back and forth. This single game. First one in the best of 5. Now, before this stream started, I said to Kachka, we're getting 5 games of 40-minute League of Legends.
I didn't believe you.
I thought it was going to be Farm Fest, but this is entertainment. Pure art. It's peak League of Legends. Not really. It could be a bit cleaner, but hey, it's definitely entertaining, and I think that these teams are really showing us the best that they have prepared. I mean, Upper does manage to clear out a control ward. That's something.
Hey, plus 30 gold. Stones are real here. Alright, 40 seconds until the second Infernal Dragon. And with the game going into its 30th and 40th minutes probably, it's gonna be a massive objective.
Definitely going to be that, yes. Now, we're kind of entering the late game, as you said, the 30th, 40th minutes. And we kind of have to look at what both these compositions want to do, because they have a very similar playstyle, and that is just jump on top of the enemy and burst them down. However, given that it has actually evened out over the course of the past 15 or so minutes, it's now going to be a bit more difficult for the side of Fuzzy Esports, just because they need to either find a Thresh hook or they need to find a flank from Rek'Sai, whereas the side of Vuptrox Academy, they have an Alistar, they have a Gragas. Those two champions alone are able to secure them the edge at the beginning of these big team fights, and so right now, they should be having the upper hand in these engagements, but it's all about finding the pick, and Fuzzy Esports have been the team to give them that, at least so far.
Predator from Varte has time down. The Dragon is now being focused down. Bumblebee, he nearly has hit the Mega Knight. They hook onto the Endorser. Here comes Bumblebee. Can he get a big ultimate? That's the question. The Dragon already got in favor of Vuptrox Academy. Khaled flashing into the backline with that killer instinct. Can it be the fight that Fuzzy Esports are looking for? Bumblebee, he's in the front line. Hopper already killing Ganidia. That's 2 kills. Make that a 3rd one for the side of Fuzzy Esports, and Vuptrox are routing. Lippic is gonna go down. That's a double for the Rek'Sai. Chris is the last one alive. He's gonna get a kill onto himself, but that is the ace, and it could be the game 1.
Right now, the bot lane wave is there to help out the siege of the side of Fuzzy Esports. Mid lane is also pushing in if they were to take that, but a fabulous team fight and an amazing hook by Necromercer secures that big ace for Fuzzy. It also is going to be able to secure them the first inhibitor. Now the Nexus turrets are going to start to fall, and it's all about individual.
Endorser is up and alive, but one team fight is all that it takes to close out the game 1. And it will be Fuzzy Esports who strike first in the series.
And I think that we're in for a treat, Kachka, because if this
Yes.
was just the first game, what can we expect from these next ones? We saw early game, not that much to be fair, but as soon as it turned into around the 15th minute or so, as soon as the team started coming together, as soon as they started skirmishing, it was one fight after another. Varte popped off so much, but there just wasn't enough that he could do when a crucial member, Endorser, one of the few carries on his team that could actually do something in a team fight, fell prey to the amazing Necromercer's Thresh hook. It was an impossible situation to deal with in that fight. As I had said, the pick composition of Fuzzy Esports relied pretty much just on Thresh. And what do you know? In the next minute, he hits a hook. So props to Fuzzy, because it worked.
It did, but it wasn't a convincing game 1. Which makes this series so exciting, because we're in for, at the very least, 2 more of these. Or, well, at least hopefully. I hope. Yeah, hopefully I don't think Vuptrox are really the kind of team to tilt, since their series through playoffs has been all max games. Quarterfinals, 2-1. Semifinals, 2-3. They went to 3 games in the best of 3. They went to 5 games in the best of 5. So they are no strangers to long series, and they have shown that bouncing back from defeats isn't that hard, and bouncing back from a close defeat shouldn't be that hard either.
Definitely not a prospect that Vuptrox Academy are strangers with. Of course, that means only more game for us, and that means even more of great entertainment. At least I can hope. So Stick around, guys, because we will be going into a short break to let these teams relax and wind down, think about the strategy, ban Gragas. Honestly, I think that has to be the strategy for next game, but we'll see you all in just a short bit. Don't you dare go anywhere.